Hello, and welcome to another edition of Coffee Talk with immigration attorney Brian D. Lerner. In this particular episode, I would like to talk about what happens at the interview with immigration, or the consulate, or naturalization. There's all different kinds of places that you go to the interview, and I have a lot of clients that come in and they essentially ask, well, what are they going to ask and what should I say? Well, of course, that's not legal to prep a client in such a manner that you tell them exactly what to say for any particular question. Additionally, you don't know exactly what questions they're going to ask. However, we know the issues. We know a lot of issues. Now, before we get into some specifics, another question that many clients ask is, should an attorney be present? Or would it be better to have an attorney present? Well, of course, the answer is yes. It's not just a self-serving yes, it's a yes, because a lot of times what happens is people will answer something in such a manner that is either ambiguous or is not the actual answer as to what it should be. And the officer sometimes will go off into left field and basically say things and ask questions that have nothing to do with the petition at hand and that they don't have authorization to ask. For example, let me just give you a little example. Somebody files a VAWA petition, a battered spouse petition. It goes to Vermont, they went through all the procedures and everything, and they approved it. And now that is an approval of a petition for a battered spouse. Now, sometimes, especially if the person then wants to adjust status and goes in for an adjustment interview, the officer starts inquiring about the validity and the merits of the battered spouse petition, almost to the point, well, did you really get hit, and is this particular report valid, and so forth. And unless there is a clear element of fraud in front of the officer at that time, they don't have the right to essentially re-adjudicate the VAWA petition. And this is just one example. There's tons of other examples that I have. Maybe at one point I'll make a video of examples of what officers should not ask at particular places. Now, in the particular respect of the interview itself, when attorneys go with you, yes, it absolutely helps for a couple reasons. One, the officer knows that an immigration attorney is in the interview, and that they hopefully will realize that if they do go off to left edge and do start questioning things that have no reference or do not bear on the merits of the particular application, that the attorney will do what's necessary to explain gently and nicely and tactfully to the officer what needs to be done, why it's incorrect, and so forth. And also, if an attorney is there, the attorney can clarify issues that are unclear. The attorney can present or bring evidence that the attorney knows is available, but maybe the client doesn't pull out. And also, in some respects, the attorney can also, if needed, go to the supervisor of a particular officer if it's needed. I've had cases where it's needed where, for example, there was a secondary inspection and the officer was misinterpreting a section of law which made the client eligible to get his green card back. I cited the law, I cited the statutory provision, the Code of Federal Regulations, but the officer wouldn't hear it. The officer, in his mind, thought that he was right and that everything I was saying was meaningless. So I gently requested, we're going to have to speak with your supervisor, which there's an absolute right at an interview to speak with the supervisor. So we spoke with the supervisor, and the supervisor didn't want to make his subordinate look bad, basically. So he didn't blatantly disagree with what the officer had done, yet he gave me exactly what I was asking for. So that's a good thing. Now, there's some interviews that I go to where I hardly have to say anything, but the mere fact that a knowledgeable immigration attorney is in the room with you at the interview sometimes makes all the difference. Now, let me give you another example where it was very useful for the clients. It was basically a marriage petition, and there was an issue of the validity of the marriage, the marriage itself. So, the officer calls in the husband first and then the wife, and of course, because I'm the attorney, I was able to go into both and hear what both said. Well, one of the questions was, when was the last vacation you had and where did you go? And they both gave different answers. So afterwards, I confronted them. I go, look, you said you went to Las Vegas 3 months ago, and you said you went to, some other place, a year and a half ago. And so I found out that they were, that Las Vegas was the actual place, that the one who didn't remember was very nervous, didn't have all the, proper facts basically, and went to the interview not fully prepared basically. And when I mean prepared, I mean he was really, really nervous, okay? And so I had him prepare a declaration saying what, the reality was, why he gave the wrong answer, and so forth, and then ultimately it was approved. But of course, if the attorney wasn't there, for sure they would have got a denial saying that it was not a bona fide marriage because they gave differing answers, okay? And so the way essentially that an interview works is the basic issues that are going to be dwelled upon as to whether or not it should be approved or not. So let me give an example. Let's say you're going to go to an interview at the U.S. consulate and you're trying to apply for a B-2 visitor visa. Well, what are the issues they look for? Well, the number one issue is they look for non-immigrant intent. They want to make sure you don't have intent to get a green card. So when, I prep the clients, I let them know about this non-immigrant intent issue. Well, you don't have to know the exact questions to know what they are getting at. So when, you go to the interview and they say, well, once you're there, where are you going to visit? And are you planning on staying longer? And do you have family there? And are you going to be petitioned by an employer and so forth? Of course, any of the answers to that, which would lead the officer to believe that you want to get a green card, the B-2 would be immediately denied. Also, if you all of a sudden disclose that you have a fiancé U.S. citizen there and that's the reason you're going, boom, it's denied because you no longer have non-immigrant intent. Well, also there's the issue of whether you're going to have sufficient money to, visit Disneyland in New York and your relatives, or whether you're going to have to hop on the, whether you're going to have to try to get a job because you don't have sufficient money. So of course when they say how much money do you have, and do you have a bank account, and who's going to be sponsoring you and so forth, well, of course all of that goes to the public charge issue and whether you're going to have to work unlawfully. So you're going to know that issue, and you're going to be able to go into the interview knowing you're going to have to show that you have sufficient income. Also, when another big issue with B-2s is they want to make sure that you intend on returning to your home country when you are finished with your visit. So they're going to ask things like, what job do you have here, being your home country, what assets do you have, what family do you have here, and of course you're going to be ready for all of that. So you know that those issues are going to pop up, and so even though I can't tell you the exact question, I will be able to let you know the issues, and an immigration attorney who knows what they're doing and is familiar with the issues will be able to prep you on the knowledge of the issues that are going to be coming up, okay? If you're going to be applying for naturalization and you're inside the U.S., of course, there's always the issue of good moral character, so they're going to have to determine whether or not you have a past crime. And of course, before you send the client in, if you're an attorney, send the client into the interview, you will have not only knowledge of all the crimes, you'll have the docket sheets, you'll have when it occurred, you'll have everything, and you will have asked the client what happened, and you'll know all of the various facts for the particular crimes, okay? And then there, as far as naturalization also, it depends if you're falling under the 3-year issue because of getting the green card married to a U.S. citizen. And if that's the case, one of the issues is going to be that you uh, actually are still married, and that it's a bona fide marriage, and that you're basically happy in the marriage. So basically, essentially, with that particular ground, what you will realize is that every single type of interview appointment will have issues. You know the issues before. So there's getting the green card, through adjustment, and then there's the bona fide relationships and so forth. There's interviews for the naturalization. There's interviews at the consulate for immigrant and non-immigrant visas. There's all kinds of particular interviews that you would go to. Now, just so you know, there's no right to an attorney at a consulate interview, although I have gone to some and sat outside, and sure enough, the officer waves me to come on to clarify some matters, and it turns out it was helpful. So, of course, you always have to be respectful to the particular officer, but when you go to the interviews, have a packet of items ready, have it organized, have copies already made, so you can show the original, but hand a copy, make it real easy for the officer, and you just pull it out, and then, if the attorney's with you and sees some holes in the arguments or whatever, he or she will be able to jump in and get you back on the right track. So, in any event, sort of just touched on the issues of what happens at an interview. But at the end of it, sometimes what will happen, you'll get what's called an I-72, which is a document which says that you need to provide this, and this, which is fine. You just go and get it prepared, and then send it in or walk it in and get it stamped. Sometimes they'll approve it right there, which that's becoming less and less often these days. And then sometimes they will deny it right there, but that's very unlikely, because normally for a denial they have to go to the supervisor to make sure that the denial is proper. So in any case, that is the summation of what happens during an interview. If you have further questions or issues, just make an appointment for a free consultation. Also, do me a favor, like the video, subscribe to all my videos. I do have about 550 now, increasing all the time, and be happy to help, and more on the coming videos. Thank you.